Hello, everybody. We're here today to welcome Margaret Milligan from the Nebraska Cooperative Development Center, who's going to be giving us a short presentation on the basics of cooperatives. This webinar is a kickoff to our summer webinar series, which will bring you cooperative topics such as interviews with cooperative business owners, as well as a deeper dive into different topics related to cooperatives. This project is being brought to you by the Center for Rural Affairs and the Nebraska Cooperative Development Center. It's being funded by a USDA Socially Disadvantaged Rural Development Grant. All right, thank you and welcome, Margaret. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Justin. I'm really glad to be here and to share a little bit more about cooperative businesses and kind of why people would want to consider them as an option. And like you said, I am from the Nebraska Cooperative Development Center, which is a part of the Agricultural Economics Department at UNL. So, in this presentation, we're going to cover kind of the basic definition of a cooperative. So what do we mean when we say cooperatives? And we're also going to go over some of the reasons why cooperatives are formed and the benefits that they could provide. We'll also, go over some examples of different cooperatives and talk about the needs that they meet. So I do want to make a disclaimer that this is a really small presentation, a small conversation covering a really big topic. And we're hoping to use today's session as a kind of a jumping off point for future conversations. And I would just encourage anybody who is watching to get in touch with the Center for Rural Affairs or with the Nebraska Cooperative Development Center if you want to connect or if you have a question. So that is my little disclaimer. But let's start at this point. Like, what do we mean when we say cooperatives? The word brings to mind a lot of different things to different people. Like for me, growing up in Nebraska, when I first started hearing the word cooperatives or co-ops, it would be associated with a farmer's co-op that we can find in a lot of towns in Nebraska. And over the years, for me, that definition has expanded and that bubble has expanded to include a lot of different types of cooperatives. So that's all to say there's no one set definition, and people can work cooperatively or collaboratively without being a cooperative business. They could collaborate between individuals, businesses can collaborate together. They can share resources and equipment and labor. These are all examples kind of working cooperatively or collaboratively, but they maybe aren't necessarily cooperatives in the business model sense. And for our purposes today, we're gonna kind of use that business model definition of cooperatives, and that's really a farm or a business or another organization that is owned and run jointly by its members, and those members share the profits or benefits of that cooperative. So that's our working definition today. And so in other words, a cooperative is a type of business that is owned by its users, it's governed by its users, and it exists for user benefit. And I just want to note that when I use the word users, that can also be referred to as members, as user owners or member owners or owners. And it's just really getting at, these are the people who use, govern, and finance a cooperative. That's what a user is. So I will say that cooperative businesses are in all sectors and all industries, and that is across the country, across our country, and across the globe. So just kind of to unwind these three characteristics a little bit more, when we say it's owned by its users, that kind of means that the people who use the cooperative own and finance the cooperative. They own and finance that business. And cooperatives are typically financed by members, and that could be, members paying a membership fee or purchasing stock or something like that. It could also be associated with, volunteering hours or labor. So the second characteristic is that co-ops are governed by its users. So that means that the cooperative's users are ultimately responsible to set the direction of that business. And they vote democratically. So one user or one member has one vote to set major policies and to elect a governing board of directors. And users also are the ones that draw up the bylaws, which is a document that describes how the cooperative functions. So this is a business that is governed by the people who use it. And the third characteristic is that it exists for user benefit. So the group involved in the cooperative is usually the group that will benefit the most from having the cooperative business in place. And really kind of the big idea here to me is that this kind of sets cooperatives apart from other business models in that it places decision-making and kind of business direction into the hands of the people who are involved in the cooperative. Kind of ultimately what this business model says to me is that people know what they need, and people on the ground facing these unmet needs or challenges know best how to address them, and the cooperative business model can respect that knowledge. And we're just taking a pretty simplified view today because we're going to deep dive into some other topics later on in the series. And I don't really want to get into the nuts and bolts of cooperative formation and kind of the legal side of things. But to kind of summarize it, it's a business model, it's a business type. It can be used in any sector or industry, and it can be made up of a group of individuals, or it can be made up by a group of businesses. In terms of like cooperative law and formation of cooperatives, every state is different. So there's no one set of rules governing how cooperatives are formed legally. You have to go to the state level to determine that. And some of the common features, besides being user-owned, governed, and existing for the benefit of the users, are that cooperatives usually have articles of incorporation. So that's kind of the official paperwork that's filed in order to conduct business. They have bylaws, which is a document that is adopted through member voting that describes how the business functions. They're typically governed by a board of directors made up of members. And again, they're financed by members, and there's membership agreements. So we will hopefully go into some of those topics later on in this series. I just wanted to give a shout out that Cooperatives are not monolithic. Like there is a huge variety of cooperatives, and I would urge you to don't let your preconceived notions about what a cooperative looks like hold you back from thinking about what a cooperative could be. So they really do come in all sizes, with all kinds of goals and benefits. And they come from all sorts of situations and needs. And I'm going to spend a little time in the next few slides talking about like those situations and needs. And just some quick examples here to illustrate that they are not monolithic. Ocean Spray is an agricultural cooperative made up of farmers, and they're national, if not international. You can find Ocean Spray cranberry juice in pretty much every grocery store across the country, and they are a producer cooperative. On the other side of that, there's a cooperative like Roots for Change, which is a cooperative of Latina and Indigenous doulas and healthcare workers who have formed a service cooperative in which they offer community-based healthcare work in Madison, Wisconsin. So they're very like hyper local. Another example is Defector, which is a cooperative sports and culture media outlet that's online. And this is a worker cooperative owned by the people who write the content for the site. So there's just a lot of variety in the cooperative world. So there's a lot of cooperatives out there. There's a lot of varieties, but like, why do cooperatives form? And what are the reasons why they are, owned by their users, controlled by their users, and exist for the user benefit? And I would say that the common thread is that they arise from a common need of a group, and they form as a solution to issues faced by that group. And most importantly, that solution, the cooperative, is devised, controlled, and maintained by the people who are affected by that need or issue or problem. And sometimes they form in industries or sectors or populations that are not served, or who face discrimination, or who are too small to be served by traditional financial institutions, large-scale corporations, and other profit-driven businesses. And they're a way to meet your needs and your community's needs through a business model, and one that is hyper-focused on your specific group and its needs. So I'm just gonna give some more examples of why a cooperative might form, and we'll kind of go from there. So workers might form a worker cooperative to make business decisions and set policy that results in higher wages, better quality of life, more safety and job security. Local farms could form a marketing and distribution cooperative where they would pool resources and perhaps even their crops that they grow in order to expand where they sell, and achieve things that really couldn't be achieved by a singular farm. People living in a manufactured home community may form a housing cooperative, and it would be made up of manufactured home owners, not private property management companies. And they would do this in order to own the land their homes sit on and to engage in decision-making and management of their neighborhoods, and management that is reflective of their values as community members. So people who live in a neighborhood or town that doesn't have a grocery store might form a cooperative consumer-owned grocery store by pooling together their resources and labor in order to bring food to their community when there is not. So the advantages and benefits of cooperatives are kind of tied to why cooperatives form in the first place. And we'll just touch on a few of these benefits and how cooperatives achieve them. With economy of scale, cooperatives allow small businesses or individuals to do what bigger businesses or individuals with more power can do, like buy materials at bulk rates or increase their production volume to open up new markets. Banding together in a cooperative also gives individuals and businesses higher bargaining power. So it is sometimes harder to affect change in services, costs, policies, and regulations when you are an individual or just one business, but by coming together, you hold more power to change what you need to be changed. Access to capital. So individuals or businesses who are cooperatives, they can pool their resources and their capital to invest in the business. They can also pool the capital or experiences to increase their borrowing power. You know, like when you have that combined, those combined finances or experience, that's powerful when we talk about collateral and whatnot. And this is big when individuals or small businesses cannot like access loans or funding or capital because they're too small, too unconventional, or too young. Along with that, there's the access to products and services. So because of their kind of ability to access and raise capital, and through that bargaining power, cooperatives can access products or services that they couldn't as individuals or individual businesses. So one of the other benefits of cooperatives is this quality of life issue. So, you know, the benefits of a cooperative can be pretty tangible, like financial benefits, you know, higher wages, lower costs, dividends, things like that. But it can also be benefits like shared responsibility and access to, you know, health services. It could mean lighter loads for individuals. There could be a support system of other cooperatives and other people in your cooperatives. You know, the ability to determine work policies, confidence and trust, and really the ability to influence your work, community, and life all contribute to this enhanced quality of life. So another benefit of a cooperative could be continuity, and we can also think of this as like business transition. Cooperatives, especially worker cooperatives, can be used to continue a business. So the more people involved in the business, the more opportunity, you know, you have for that business to continue to employ people and meet needs. So a worker cooperative could be formed and it could continue the business even if the founder of the business like were to retire or relocate or decide that they no longer want to operate the business. And one of the last benefit I'll mention is that they can be hyper local. Yes, there are certainly national and international cooperatives, but a lot of cooperatives are very specific and deal with very local issues. And they're typically comprised of people who are, committed to their community, where they live and work. And when that happens, more dollars stay in that local community, more people stay in that community, and more solutions happen. So I'm just gonna share one example of a cooperative in Nebraska, and there's several here in the state, but I wanted to highlight the community-owned grocery store model. That is one area that the Nebraska Cooperative Development Center has been pretty involved with over the past 10 or 15 years. And I just wanted to give this as a little example to get the wheels turning about the possibilities of a cooperative in your community. So the Elwood Hometown Cooperative Market is a cooperative grocery store in rural Nebraska, where the owners of the grocery store are members of the community. And the needs of this group, why the cooperative was formed, was they needed a local source of food and groceries. And they needed a local source of food and groceries after the grocery store in town closed. And there weren't any other grocery stores in town. Local residents didn't have access to food without, traveling significant mileage outside of their hometown. So the community members came together and decided that this was a big enough need, a need that was compelling enough to them to own a cooperative grocery store together. So the cooperative in this case is meeting the needs of the group by providing a stable and local source of groceries. It's owned by community members, so these people want it to succeed and value it. They're not necessarily solely driven by profit. They see the value in having a grocery store beyond how much money it could make. It also provides food, but also a sense of pride and ownership in the town. And having this grocery store makes the town attractive to new residents, and it helps the town retain existing residents. And it acts as an anchor business to the area, attracting other businesses to that main street. So we're gonna wrap things up here. Cooperatives, my final thought is that cooperatives can be really rewarding and effective, but they won't turn an unsound business idea into a sound business idea. So, the economics of the business model, they've got to be sound, and there has to be a shared vision, and the needs of the community, of the group of people, it has to be compelling enough to make people want to work together and work really hard to see this thing through. And I'll just mention that, some of the common problems in cooperatives revolve around a lack of commitment of some members. And that, I think, is probably just a symptom of that lack of shared vision. or not having a strong shared vision between members. Another problem would be an unrealistic business plan. Like if the numbers don't work out to keep the business going, then you'll encounter problems. And another common problem would be insufficient funds to get started or lack of capitalization. And these are all, challenges and issues that hopefully we'll be able to go over more in depth in the series. But I will leave you with the final thought. In this coming week, I challenge you to think about how cooperatives might fit into your own life. What are the unmet needs of your business, of your community, or of yourself? And are there others who may share those same needs? So that's my challenge to you. And I look forward to talking with you more about cooperatives in the future. So thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Margaret. And please feel free to contact the Center for Rural Affairs if you have any other questions. And we look forward to seeing you at our other webinars throughout the year.